Super Lucky Disaster Man. Chapter 93, Extra, Whitewashing Phase, Jin's PTSD. When Kudo Shinichi initially heard Edogawa Ranpo's voice, he wanted to say something, but after hearing the latter part, he immediately turned around to glare at Dazai Osamu. After all, he was Edogawa Ranpo's assistant for a while. Even though it was only during break periods, the accumulated time was enough for him to understand Ranpo's speaking habits and to easily interpret his words. Therefore, as soon as he heard it, he understood. Dazai Osamu's goal in going to that organization probably wasn't simple. If he wasn't mistaken, Dazai Osamu had gone there as an undercover agent. Sure enough, Dazai Osamu responded in a rather subtle way, "This doesn't have anything to do with you, Ranpo-san, does it?" Kudo Shinichi was baffled. Ranpo-san? This form of address. Why did Dazai Osamu seem so familiar with Ranpo-san? Edogawa Ranpo, knowing Dazai Osamu, didn't surprise him too much. After all, Komaeda Nagito, the president, and Edogawa Ranpo had pretty good relationships. In fact, last summer, Komaeda Nagito did his assignments at the Armed Detective Agency office, and he didn't really hide his relationship with Dazai Osamu. Everyone was familiar with it to that level, so it was normal for them to know each other. But knowing each other and being familiar were two different matters. Ranpo-san had always spoken rather bluntly, but even Dazai Osamu seemed to be talking in a familiar tone. Even with Komaeda-senpai as the intermediary, Kudo Shinichi couldn't figure out why these two were so close. The Armed Detective Agency's activities mostly stayed within Yokohama, and Dazai Osamu had offended the Yokohama local powerhouse, the Port Mafia, so he presumably wouldn't return to Yokohama that often. How did they end up like this? If they were really this familiar, then when he worked at the Armed Detective Agency, why did no one mention Dazai Osamu when talking about the Port Mafia? Kudo Shinichi instinctively started spinning scenarios in his mind, investigating fiercely, trying to dig something useful out of his own memories. The conclusion was that there was nothing. He thought everyone was being considerate of Komaeda-senpai's connection with Dazai Osamu and didn't want to bring it up. Kudo Shinichi looked to Komaeda Nagito for help, trying to get a hint from his reliable senior. Komaeda Nagito didn't notice Kudo Shinichi's gaze, simply coughing lightly. Ranpo-san, the client is Kudo-kun. Stop dragging Dazai-kun in, let's get down to business. I'm solving Kudo's problem. Edogawa Ranpo replied confidently. Isn't directly asking Dazai Osamu the simplest way? Kudo Shinichi couldn't help but interject, Dazai-san doesn't want to say anything. Edogawa Ranpo lightly said, he wants to see you struggle, so of course he won't talk. This is when you need a trump card, Dazai-kun. The entrance test is about solving Kudo's problem. If you can't solve it, your recommendation letter is useless. What? Kudo Shinichi was shocked. Dazai-san is also joining the Armed Detective Agency. That's how it was planned 2 years ago. Whether he has changed his mind now is uncertain. Komaeda Nagito replied. Dazai Osamu's voice turned dismissive, Ranpo-san, ruining someone's fun is really too much. Ha ha ha, Ranpo-sama does whatever he wants. The president would also approve of this test. Edogawa Ranpo said smugly, you just have to answer, yes or no. Tisk. Dazai Osamu clicked his tongue. Let's talk later. Edogawa Ranpo wasn't bothered by this vague response and nonchalantly said, then I'll leave it to you. Over and out. The call ended. Kudo Shinichi. They were supposed to solve his problem, yet he barely managed to speak with Edogawa Ranpo for a few sentences throughout. What a chaotic mess. He took a deep breath, sat down on the sofa across from them, organized his thoughts, and suddenly spoke. Dazai-san, are you working undercover in this organization? Dazai Osamu, you guess. Kudo Shinichi. You guess, is that even a proper answer? I'm talking to you seriously here. Originally, Kudo Shinichi wanted to launch into a lengthy detective analysis, but now he lost heart. Meanwhile, Dazai Osamu continued his performance with Komaeda Nagito. Everyone else's test wasn't this difficult. Komaeda-kun, do you think Ranpo-san is biased against me? Although the things I did in the past were indeed worth being judged for. Ah, as expected, once you've done a bad thing, there's no way to go back. The heavy, green tea style almost made Kudo Shinichi spit out his lunch. However, Komaeda Nagito seemed used to it, showing no reaction to Dazai Osamu's tone and even picked up on the main point to encourage him. I think if Ranpo-san made this the test to join the agency, he probably thought it wouldn't be too difficult for Dazai-kun. Ranpo-san obviously appreciates Dazai-kun's value. I believe Dazai-kun can complete the task effortlessly. After saying this, Komaeda Nagito calculated some dates, as mentioned earlier this year. Would you want to get it done before summer break, Dazai-kun? We could intern together then. Dazai Osamu, who had previously appeared frail, changed his tone and spoke seriously. Actually, it should be about time. Finishing the entrance test along the way isn't bad. Kudo Shinichi. So, his thoughts as the victim don't matter at all, do they? So how do you plan to help me, Dazai-san? Kudo Shinichi tried to control the progression of events. It was a habit of a detective to be involved. He felt uncomfortable when he knew nothing. You've mentioned before that this was originally a poison, and my transformation is just an accident, right? So there's no way to just make an antidote. Dazai Osamu said in a relaxed tone, there's definitely no antidote, but we could try to get the technical personnel to develop one. Kudo Shinichi. Meeting Komaeda Nagito just led to the entrance test. It seemed like more trouble, but when Dazai Osamu went to meet the organization's members, his expression looked rather joyful. Don't let how reluctant he seemed in front of Kudo Shinichi fool you. The entrance test really wasn't much for him. If worst came to worst, he could always find some make-people-old ability user and use them to fake it. After all, a make-people-young ability user was good at hiding, but he had heard of the make-people-old ones. And as long as he managed to turn Kudo Shinichi back to around 17 years old, that was enough to take the roundabout route to victory. Hennessy. Jin, at the meeting place, smoking a cigarette, had vodka beside him. When he saw Dazai Osamu, he flicked the cigarette away, crushed it underfoot, and aimed a gun at Dazai Osamu. You're late. Where have you been? Dazai Osamu ignored the gun, continuing to move forward. I have emotional needs too. I just went to release some steam. Does the organization care about that? Jin gave a cold laugh. The organization doesn't care who you go to see, but you're late. If you're putting it that way, Bourbon is also late, Dazai Osamu said. Immediately, a voice came from the darkness. I am not. Bourbon, real name Furuya Rei, was technically in the same faction as Dazai Osamu, both undercover for the Japanese police. Slowly, he emerged from the depths of a narrow alleyway. I heard something about being late from quite far away. And there's still half an hour left. Jin. Half an hour? The mission has been delayed, Bourbon said. Didn't Hennessy notify you? Hennessy was Dazai Osamu's codename. Quite coincidentally, the codename assigned to him was the very first bottle of liquor that Komaeda Nagito had picked when they drank together. Dazai Osamu was rather satisfied with it. Although for someone like Dazai Osamu, having or not having a codename didn't make much of a difference, since those who interacted with him frequently knew very well that his real name was Dazai Osamu. That name was too well known in the underworld. Still, he insisted everyone call him by his codename, causing everyone believes he truly loved the Hennessy brand. I didn't receive any notice, Jin said skeptically. What's going on? Explain. Dazai Osamu sighed. It's just a normal mission delay. Does this really need an explanation? Why was Bourbon the only one informed? Vodka saw Jin's forehead veins bulge and quickly added, shouldn't something like this be informed to everyone? Because when I decided to delay the time, Bourbon just happened to call. Of course, it's necessary to inform if it's earlier, but delaying it by half an hour doesn't really need that, right? You were all going to arrive early anyway, or are you saying there's something urgent that you have to do during that half an hour? Dazai Osamu threw the words back. Besides, Am I not informing you now? Or does your understanding ability have issues, needing several hours to grasp something this simple? Jin. Vodka, Aniki, calm down. Please calm down. Dazai-osamu, this guy liking to look for something to do when there's nothing is nothing new. Aniki, you better get used to it sooner. Even the boss says that talented people tend to have a bigger ego, so just endure it. Furuya-rei watched as Jin was left speechless from anger, and couldn't help but feel a little satisfied. He knew Dazai-osamu was undercover for their side, and the two of them had worked together a few times. For example, Dazai-osamu would write a plan, and Furuya-rei's side would cooperate by taking intelligence from the police and giving it back to the organization, helping him build trust within the organization. Of course, Furuya-rei didn't yet know about Dazai-osamu's habit of double-crossing everyone. If he did, he definitely wouldn't be so pleased. Just joking a little. Dazai-osamu said insincerely, and then added, actually, I found Akai Shuichi. Jin immediately calmed down. Akai Shuichi is back in Japan? Yes. Actually, it was very easy for Dazai-osamu to contact Akai Shuichi. He could have just called. They had exchanged contact information back in the day when Komaeda Nagito was hospitalized in the US. But this was something Akai Shuichi certainly wouldn't have mentioned to Jin. So this information was obtained by Dazai-osamu through other channels, and it had been in his hands for a while. He simply hadn't found it necessary to say anything until now. Now that he had been late, and with the entrance test, Akai Shuichi just came to mind. I want to see if I can lure out Akai Shuichi in the process. Dazai-osamu said, I remember you once said that Akai Shuichi has a girlfriend in the organization. Yes, Mieno Akemi. Jin frowned. Are you planning to use her as bait? Is that not allowed? Jin thought for a moment. It's fine, she's just a low-ranking member. Furuya-rei felt a bit uneasy. Mieno Akemi was his childhood friend, something Dazai-osamu didn't know, so he didn't dare to say much. He just hoped he could privately inquire about her situation later. Does she have any relatives in the organization? Dazai-osamu knowingly asked. She has a younger sister, in the research division. It was easy to verify this kind of information, so Jin didn't hide it. Why do you ask? Dazai-osamu smiled. Well, I have a plan. Jin. Out of 10 of Dazai-osamu's plans, 6 involved dealing with undercover agents. Even though he enjoyed eliminating traitors, those words, I have a plan, still gave him PTSD. There were just too many rats. If this continued, even he couldn't help but feel a bit suspicious about the organization. Chapter 93 End.